Hi, welcome. This is Nick Agram. In this video, I will be discussing quadratics or solving quadratic equations. This is the introduction. I'm going to define a quadratic equation. According to one book, I just copied it. It states that a quadratic equation is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Where a, b, c are constants. Okay, and it says it should not be this one. Oh, it's here. Sorry. This one. Or a should not be equal to 0. This is a very important one. Why? Because when a is equal to 0, then you have 0x squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Then this will become 0, so you have only bx time added by c is equal to 0. As you can see, you don't have any square anymore. You don't have a degree 2. Then this is called linear equation. That's the reason why. A quadratic equation can look like this. It can look like this. Ax squared plus c is equal to 0. That means b is equal to 0. Here, b is equal to 0. Then you only have ax squared plus c. This is still a quadratic equation. Why? You still have the exponent 2. All equations with the highest degree 2 is called a quadratic equation. You need to remember that. Okay, it can look like this also. When c is equal to 0, then it will look like this. Ax squared plus bx is equal to 0. This is still, as I've said, a quadratic equation. And the general form, as they mentioned here. This is the general form. Okay. When we're solving a quadratic equation in different forms, for example, the first one, we have ax squared plus b plus c is equal to 0, then the only thing that we can do here is finding the squares. I will give an example of this. So for example, we have 9x squared minus 4 is equal to 0. Then we don't need 4 there. We add both sides of the equation 4 by 4. Then we have 9x squared is equal to 4. And then we have divided by 9. Divided by 9, then we have x squared is equal to 4/9. Then we take the square root of both sides of the equation. Then we have x is equal to, when we're taking the square root of a number, we have 2 roots. Okay? We have 2 roots. Why? Because when I square 2/3 and when I square negative 2/3, both of these have the same product, 4/9. Remember that. Okay, a quadratic equation has 2 roots. 2 roots. Later you will see that there are also quadratic equations without a root. or no real root, no real solution. And later you will see also that a quadratic equation has a double root or repeated root or single root. It depends. But I hope you understood that when you have b is equal to 0, you only have this. Then you just solve it as a simple equation and then take the square root of both sides of the equation. Let's take some more. Okay. I will get another pen. For example, you have 5x squared is equal to 30. And then we divide both sides of the equation by 5 by 5. Oh, I should not give that way. I should have used this way, so that you will be benefited by seeing it. 30 is equal to 0. And then we add both sides of the equation by 30 by 30. And we have 5x squared is equal to 30. And then we divide both sides of the equation by 5. Then we have x squared is equal to 6. Taking the square root of both sides of the equation, then we have x is equal to positive negative square root of 6. When it is not a square, as you can see here, this is a square. Both 4 and 9 are squares. If they are not, then you will get an irrational number. Okay, positive negative 6. But if your teacher says that you need to answer in 2 decimal, then you need to get your calculator and answer. Okay. Another that I want to show you is that sometimes we have, for example, we have 4x squared plus 1 is equal to 0. And then we have 4x squared. We subtract both sides of the equation by 1. And we have negative 1. If we divide both sides of the equation by 4, then we have x squared is equal to negative 1/4. And then if we take the square root of both sides of the equation, then we have x is equal to, when you have negative, this one, when you have negative inside the radical sign, then you will get an error. If you take your calculator, you will get an error. Why? Because this is not a real, what you get is not a real solution, a real root. It is a complex solution. You will learn more about it later. Complex number. But now it is alright to write no real roots. Other book says no real solution. Okay, later you will learn when to get the complex solution, complex number solution. But now it's alright. I just want to introduce to you that when you get negative under the radical sign, then you have no real roots. Yeah, I hope you learn something in this lecture. In my next video, I will be discussing solving quadratic equation when c is equal to 0. That means ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. When c is equal to 0, then it is look like this. And there is another way to solve that. See you on my next video.